Hello, and welcome to another episode of Who Died with Pete and Alex. It's your weekly guide to some of the famous, infamous, and noteworthy figures who have gone to the great beyond. Have I said that one before? I don't know. But, yeah, this will be the week of May 9th to 16th, I believe.
Sounds good.
Well, with a little flexibility. I'll tell you why in a second. We're figuring out the format, you know. But yes, if this is your first show, this is the first time you're listening, we're just basically going through some notable deaths from the past week. And Alex, I believe you have our first honoree this week.
Okay, our first honoree is a gentleman by the name of Doyle Brunson. And
Doyle Brunson.
Doyle Brunson.
Very tough-sounding name.
Yeah, it does. It's funny. He was a professional poker player for over 50 years. Born August 10th, 1933. We lost him on May 14th of this year. And he started off as a basketball player. He was a tall gentleman, and when he was in high school, he was almost drafted to the Minneapolis Lakers. Shows you how long ago it was. The Minneapolis Lakers. Sounds so strange to the tongue now that they play in Los Angeles for most of our collective memories. He got injured, and basketball's loss was poker's gain, because he became started playing in illegal games in Texas and Oklahoma. You know, back then there was not really much legal, and eventually made his way to Las Vegas, where he found his fortune and he won the first ever World Series of Poker in 1970, and would go on to win the World Series of Poker 10 times throughout his career. So he's like the New York Yankees of poker, winning one out of every 5 World Series of Pokers is. He was the first player also to win $1 million playing poker professionally. And
collectively, like his total career earnings topped $1 million or something.
Yeah, I mean his total career was something like $6 million or something. But,
right, but he got there first.
Yeah. In 1978, he created a bit of I don't want to say controversy, but he self-published a book called Super/System. You can tell it's self-published. No editor would come out with a book called Super/System. And he was basically revealing...
Well, unless it was a Super/System, like how to play guitar, you know.
But no, this one was about how to play poker. He dished out some of the secrets as to his tips and tricks. He says this decision probably cost him a lot of money over the years because a lot of people, this was their first real introduction to, real poker strategy and stuff. And he just generally became a beloved figure in the world of poker. And I think Poker Magazine said he's had the biggest influence on modern poker is Doyle Brunson. I remember seeing him back in the big poker boom in the early 2000s. I remember seeing him, and he's like this tall, drawly Texan guy, exactly what you would think a professional poker player, an old school professional poker player should look like. He also has the distinction of having not one, but 2 different starting hands in Texas Hold'em named after him. A 10...
The Doyle and the Brunson?
No, I think they're both just called the Doyle Brunson, rather uncreatively, but they should do the Doyle Brunson. The 10-2, which is traditionally not a good hand to start with, but he won the World Series of Poker 2 times in a row with that, starting with that hand. So it became became one of his, named after him, which...
I feel like that should be like a driver's ed or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, so Doyle Brunson, 89 years old. He had a great run. And goodbye, poker man. Is that a poker
joke? A poker pun? He had a great run.
But he folded, and now he's going to go
straight to the afterlife. I know nothing about it. I have zero interest, so it's not, it's not like I have not like I'm asking for information about poker from the populace at large, but I have no knowledge of poker or poker players, and it just seems like a whole different world. What's your familiarity? And I know you do go to Las Vegas every once in a while. Is that tied to that, or is that just kind of like you found it interesting when there was that kind of boom?
Well,
like you said, on TV and stuff.
In the early 2000s, they started airing poker on TV, and that's when me, my wife, and many, many, many other people first got interested in Texas Hold'em, and I really got into playing for a while. I was always a low-stakes person, never, I didn't want to risk big money or anything. And there came a point where something clicked in me where I was like, when I get good cards, I do well, and when I get bad cards, I don't do well. I just don't think I'm a good poker player.
Yeah.
Which was a big relief, because when I would lose money playing poker, I would really beat myself up over it, that I was like, oh, that was so stupid, I shouldn't have done that. And then I was just like, it's like any sport, I'm just
not in the cards.
Just don't have the knack for it. And I was able to enjoy it a lot more knowing that it was just, pure luck. And then we stopped playing it ultimately.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'll always have a soft spot. Doyle Brunson was always one of my favorites to watch play, because again, he was very classic old school poker player.
There you go.
So, who is the first of your honorees this week?
Well, I think first I'm going to go with this is my technicality from the intro there, because it's not somebody who passed away during our time frame. He actually passed away last week, but it was just kind of announced, and we discovered the passing after we recorded last week's episode. So I'm going to sneak him in there because I just wanted to honor Frank Kozik. Kozik. Should have looked that up beforehand, but Frank Kozik is what I've always said. Probably best known as an artist of posters, somebody who designed and printed a lot of posters, primarily kind of associated with the kind of 90s alternative and punk wave. He was born in 1962 in Madrid to an American serviceman and a Spanish woman who split up before he was born. Moved with his father to Sacramento. Dropped out of high school to join the Air Force at the age of 18, which is not something I would have expected. But then the Air Force stationed him in Austin, Texas, where he found his local punk scene and kind of
weird.
That's where he found his groove. After he left the service, he worked at a nightclub and kind of befriended a bunch of the up-and-coming bands and started doing art for them, including posters. And that's where that kind of snowballed. Then in, I think, early 90s, maybe moved to San Francisco. Things were happening. Just the national kind of prominence after that, because he just became, as those bands got big across the world, then also his stuff kind of started to become associated with some of them. His Wikipedia page will say that, he's best known for these, I think it listed 2 album covers. There's one that's I think a Queens of the Stone Age album, which to me, it doesn't seem that much like his style. It's Queens of the Stone Age's first album, but the Offspring album, I forgot which one it is because I'm not that into Offspring, but there's an Offspring album that is like pure Kozik kind of,
with the kid on the swing with the giant bug.
Yeah, the kid on the swing holding a bug. Yeah.
Now I got it.
Yeah, this is again my notes. I don't have his pronunciation. I don't have the name of the album.
You're too broken up to get this information.
I know. I couldn't through the tears. No, but seriously, it was like Frank Kozik was one of those artists one of the earliest artists that I found interesting to my tastes and got into, not because somebody told me to, because I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. In my teenage years, listening to all these same bands, and seeing this, started associating, wait a minute, what's this cool poster art style? Oh, it's all this one guy who did these cool things for Sonic Youth and Mudhoney and Nirvana and then kind of got into that. I got, one or two of the, I think maybe 2 of the books that were collected of his poster work. Never had the full, I think because mainly, he would do posters for actual shows that were mainly in, either Austin, San Francisco, that kind of a thing, or people would commission them, but I feel like they were never for a show that I attended. Like I wanted that Venn diagram. I felt like a poser buying a show for like a like, oh, this is an awesome show. When I saw that tour, I saw the one their dates in New York, but I don't want to buy the one from Austin because I didn't go to that one. I would feel like a poser, even though I love the art. So I'll have it in a book, and it's fine.
You don't want to go the rest of your life. Everyone's saying, "Oh, were you at that show?" And you're like, "No, I just got it because it looked."
Well, I could, but it was a little bit. I saw it in New York, but this, it's close enough. No, not really. So. Then later, after kind of doing posters and screen printing, kind of had his own record label for a while, which seemed very kind of artist focused. It was like they didn't sign a contract, they didn't own anything for the records that they put out. Wow. Artists own the record, which seems like it makes sense. They paid for it, whatever up front. They would do a lot of the covers were kind of hand screen printed, limited runs. They would split everything, all the profits 50-50, and then when it's done, the artists own everything from it, and that seems like a artist friendly way to go. And no wonder people liked putting out records with them. Unsurprisingly, also that record company went out of business after a while. I think it got bought at first. I think he made out okay, but and later on, was creative director for Kid Robot, the kind of designer toy company. Which I didn't know that. I've bought a couple of things that are Kid Robot and didn't know he was kind of working for them, although it makes sense. It's totally up his alley. And he was one of that, that kind of wave of artists, too, that led into, those posters and graphic design stuff that then led into the kind of modern custom toy thing. Like he created characters just to have that, Smokin' Labbit, I think, is one that was made just for merchandising, just purely as a character to kind of make the cool things of. And merchandising not in a cynical way, but in a cool, like, hey, let's make cool stuff of this in an artistic way.
Yeah.
But definitely sad to see him go, and on my radar is somebody whose work I appreciate.
Good. So well, he was goodbye funny drawings man.
Yeah, not quite a funny book artist.
Yeah, but
yeah. Well, who is your next honoree, Alex?
Well, I'm sad to report that Longboy has been reported dead at the age of 5, which is sad. Not quite as sad as you might be thinking, because Longboy was in fact a duck.
Okay. What's a duck?
He was an Indian runner mallard duck hybrid, and he showed up at the University of York in England a few years back, and they think he was a pet that someone might have just let loose at the university, and had a rough start of things. All the other ducks kind of picked on him because he's this weirdo who shouldn't be in this location. But
they never let poor Longboy join in any reindeer games.
Then suddenly, one foggy Christmas Eve, he became internet famous. In 2021, someone posted a picture of him and said it was officially the tallest mallard ever on record. And not technically a mallard, and not technically the tallest. They claimed he was a meter tall, but he was only 70 centimeters, which is 7/10 of a meter.
Sure.
For those of you at home, that's about in America, that's about 2.5 feet tall, which for a duck it still seems pretty tall.
I think so.
And so this post became very viral, and the university kind of took him on as an unofficial mascot, merch and all that.
Merchandising again.
Yes, he was given an honorary doctorate. And I'm
not
sure,
a doctorate.
I can't believe they didn't go with doctorate. And I am curious as to what he was declared the doctor of. We let us know in the comments below what you think he was the. Sadly, about a few weeks back, students were like, "Hey, Longboy is not around," and some scientists were like, "Well, sometimes they migrate." Blah blah blah. All these other hemming and hawing. There's apparently have been a lot of fox attacks in the area. England, they have problems with fox overrun with foxes. And unfortunately, the university declared him officially dead. I don't know if that was for insurance purposes or there was a grieving widow who had to be placated. But he was declared dead, and now the students have started a GoFundMe. They want to create a statue of Longboy on the university. As of this recording, they've made about £1,000 so far. They're looking to get £10,000.
10,000?
So we'll see what happens. Hopefully the statue of Longboy will, in fact, go through.
All right.
So
maybe I'll put the link.
Yes.
I'll write out the link on the screen here. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If you see it, click it. Donate. Throw Longboy's widow a couple of bucks. A couple of pounds. What's it going to hurt you?
Yeah. So, yes. Goodbye, Funny Duck.
Funny Duck.
Pete, is your next person a human or an animal?
Animal, vegetable, or mineral? Well, tying into your Longboy, we have a viral sensation of a different sort. And that on May 10th, we lost Mr. Jack Rebney at age 93. 93. And Jack Rebney, born in 1929, and then was a journalist and kind of, I don't know if he was did much in the way of television work, but then somehow found his way into, in 1988, found his way into being the kind of on-air, on-screen presenter for a series of promotional films for Winnebago recreational vehicles. And the outtakes from this session ended up being an early viral kind of video sensation in the pre-internet days.
Sure, yeah.
It's so fascinating, the culture of kind of trading videos before the internet.
Yeah.
Which I'm trying to remember other examples of this kind of a thing. I mean, the Star Wars Holiday Special is kind of one of those.
Yeah.
In and of itself, but
the Jerky Boys is what I always think of.
Right. Yeah, the Jerky Boys.
Not video, but passed around on cassette prior to.
Yeah. And that you would get, you would just have a friend who knew somebody who found a copy, or sometimes at comic conventions there'd be people selling tapes of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a couple of people started this found footage festival about 20 years ago, probably. And, they started kind of collaborating on, they would go to flea markets, or they would go just, find things that just kind of seemed out of place, that were the official definition of ephemeral. The things were just meant for basically single use, either corporate training videos or stuff like that. And this, from the outtakes from the Winnebago promotional videos that somebody kept because they were just so funny, that it's just watching this guy get just flustered by the slightest things, and we've all been there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that struck a chord with everybody, that they were just kind of able to have this cathartic laughter at this guy just flipping out at like flies and just instantly swears up a storm when something goes wrong. And so I remember hearing about this before I saw it. I think probably in the pre-YouTube days, I remember hearing something about it. Didn't see it until then. Once YouTube kind of brought it to our attention, and then in 2009 there was a documentary film called Winnebago Man, which basically the director went and found the guy. Talks through the whole process of how things were traded, and exactly what I just said, except in a much more artsy and kind of less frantic way. But then goes and talks to him and sees what his deal is. And he was kind of unhappy about being remembered for that. He was like, well, why is everybody making fun of me, basically? But then gets brought to, one of these kind of found footage festival things, and people coming up to him and asking for his autograph and saying, how much they appreciate his, watching this will kind of really let them blow off steam after a hard day of work and make them laugh and that kind of a thing. And just having that connection with other people, he realized that he was making people happy in an indirect way, in an indirect, unintentional way. And then eventually there were a couple of updates. I think they went back and talked to him again. There's a Vimeo video where the director went back and kind of checked back in with him after a couple of years, and he had gone blind and was trying to self-publish some books about his stance on politics and stuff like that. So maybe best left to kind of watch the documentary and leave it at that. But it did make me think about the weird kind of, there was no reason to think that even the actual video, the final processed video, would have a life outside of, just like being a promotional tool for a couple of years, maybe for Winnebago. But for the outtakes to not only make it out to the public, to be seen by anybody, but then to kind of survive into this digital age where you can share anything with everybody and become a viral sensation in and of itself is inconceivable, I'm sure. And yet, here we are. It's a strange world we live in.
Yeah, it's weird to think that something not only, like over at Star Wars Minute, we started that kind of just as a fun, weird thing to do, and it turned into this whole big thing. But this wasn't even something he ever intended to release. You know what I mean? It's not like he created this and whoa, he won the lottery and now it's just almost like it's kind of frightening to think of in a way, or at least humbling to think of in a way that's something that you have no intention of anyone even seeing, and let alone that would be the thing you'd be most remembered for. When you go. Just goes to show you. Film everything you do all the time. You never know.
Well, just let the records show that I'm preparing the Alex Robinson outtakes tape.
Oh, man.
To go viral. So also, we like to mark historical deaths, people who have passed away on this date or this week in history. And so could not let this week pass without marking the passing of one Douglas Adams.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Douglas Adams, born March 11th, 1952, and passed away May 11th, 2001.
Gosh.
It doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was.
Time flies.
Douglas Adams, of course, best known for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was originally a 1978 BBC radio comedy. That's right. It was a radio show first, and then adapted into various formats and different. It was, of course, a well-loved novel series. It was a BBC TV program, and then they did eventually they did a movie of it. There was an interactive fiction game with Douglas Adams kind of co-wrote.
Stage show? Any stage show?
There were stage shows, I believe. I would like to see that.
Yeah.
Douglas Adams, as a kid, by the time he was 12, he was 6 feet tall. I didn't know that. He was a tall guy, a long boy, if you will. Eventually topped off at 6'5". In college, he went to, I don't understand the Cambridge system. It's like you can be at something college, Cambridge, and it's I'm something like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but while there, he was invited to be a member of the Footlights, which is a comedy troupe, invitation only comedy troupe. You have to prove your worth. And the Footlights boast many famous British comedians and actors as in their alumni. Fry and Laurie, Mitchell and Webb, and all the associated kind of Richard Ayoade and Matt Holness, I think, and all the guys from that scene, and notably several of the Pythons. Monty Python's Flying Circus crew were Footlights, and Graham Chapman, he discovered, quote unquote, Douglas Adams via a Footlights performance. He was like, hey, this kid is good. And tapped him to say, let's work together on something. And they collaborated, formed a writing partnership that didn't last too long, but it did yield fruit in the form of one sketch on what I believe is the last episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus, called Patient Abuse. And that makes Douglas Adams one of only two people, other than the original Python members, who get a writing credit on Monty Python's Flying Circus, the other being Neil Innes.
Of Ruddle's fame.
And so even though he was, discovered by, Graham Chapman, wrote on a TV show, he was still kind of out of work, had a hard time finding consistent work at that point. Moved back in with his parents, I think, and just kind of had a rough go of it, but just kind of kept submitting stuff. And had worked up the idea for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. According to the lore, he was in, was it Innsbruck, Austria, or something like that? Just kind of laying in a field, and he had a copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to Europe, and just kind of laying in the field looking up at the stars, and so, somebody should make a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then
that's it.
There you go. So he wrote up the idea, sent it off to BBC Radio, and then also, I believe around the same time, I'm not sure, so, chicken and egg or the timeline of things, also sent the script for the pilot to the Doctor Who offices at the BBC. And so they asked him to write an episode, which became The Pirate Planet, which was a good kind of Tom Baker era classic Doctor Who. And
Cricket Man.
They liked that enough. They brought him back. He around the same time, then the radio show went into production, and then things kind of snowballed from there. And so he's firmly entrenched in sci-fi lore from there. The books, I think the novels sold more than 15 million copies in his lifetime, which is impressive.
Wow.
Because I think we know nerds like him, but it's like, did that make it into the real world? There's the people who are like nerd famous who are like, oh, I think that person is, obviously they can't walk down the street without getting mobbed, but no, they're just nerds like them. But I think Hitchhiker's Guide is one of those things that escaped into the real world. Most people know what it is, at least, or they're aware that it exists.
Yeah, it's like Dune or Lord of the Rings, sort of the
right.
the top of the
right.
of the famous of the genres. So,
and then let's see, shortly after his passing, a group of fans decided, and I'm not sure why they picked this day, but let's look out for it. If you're listening to this before the 25th of May 25th is Towel Day, where, of course, all the Hoopy Froods know where their towel's at, and you're supposed to walk around with a towel, kind of displaying your towel prominently so people know that you know what's up. So May 25th is Towel Day, and it was, I think, not randomly picked, but it was just, I don't know. After his passing, people were looking for a way to kind of memorialize him, and they picked a day to be a day that we all sport our towels. So
nice.
So let's do that, and maybe you'll catch us wearing a towel next week. We will be back with a brand new crowd. I mean, ideally, the best thing that could happen is one day we come back and we're like, hey, nobody died this week.
Wow.
We would love that. But, I mean, it would make for bad content, but it would be good for humanity.
That would be like the start of a science fiction story. This week, no one died on Earth. And then no one ever died for the here on out. We'd be like, uh-oh, now what do we do?
Now we're stuck. We just started this show. But chances are, it's a fact of life. People will die between then and now, and we'll be here to talk about it on next week's Who Died with Pete and Alex.